Exponential truths, insurance, war, and student debt. Flint West reporting. Listen carefully. History is not usually decided where it looks like it is. Battles are not won on battlefields. Fortunes are not made in boardrooms. Debt traps are not sprung at the moment of borrowing. Outcomes are determined upstream, in the abstraction layer, and most people never look there. Section 1. The war was won in a room full of mathematics. In World War II, German communications were protected by the Enigma machine. On the surface, it looked unbeatable, millions upon millions of combinations. Change the settings every 12 hours. Impossible to brute force. If you attack the problem directly, letter by letter, it would take longer than civilization itself. But the breakthrough did not come from brute strength. It came from pattern recognition. The realization that certain words were almost certainly present. Weather reports, standard sign-offs, predictable phrasing meant the search space collapsed. Not because the machine was weak, but because human behavior was predictable. A known fragment of plaintext, a crib, transforms an astronomical problem into a solvable one. Once the correct rotor configuration was found for a single phrase, the entire day's communications unfolded. That is leverage. Not guns, not soldiers, not speeches, logic. And then came the darker realization. Once the abstraction layer was controlled, restraint was required. Intelligence could not be used too obviously. Some disasters had to be allowed to unfold, not because the information was absent, but because revealing knowledge would collapse the advantage. That is what operating at abstraction looks like: cold, statistical, upstream. Section 2. Insurance was never about death. In early 19th century Scotland, Scottish Widows was formed to provide financial security to families of men who died, often in war. On the surface, insurance appears emotional: protection, security, compassion. Underneath, it is mathematics. Actuarial science does not eliminate mortality. It models it. It calculates life expectancy distributions. It pools risk across populations. It ensures that the inflow of premiums across thousands of participants statistically exceeds the outflow of claims. Individual tragedies occur. The pool survives. This is not luck. It is probability engineered at scale. The business works not because no one dies, but because death follows patterns. Again, abstraction. The surface story is human. The controlling mechanism is statistical. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 3. Compound interest is a silent engine. Now consider exponential growth. Human intuition is linear. If something increases by £1,000 per year, it feels manageable, predictable. Exponential functions do not behave that way. With compound interest, growth accelerates because the base itself grows. The curve bends upward, slowly at first, then violently. In the case of UK Plan 2 student loans, introduced in 2012, interest accrues from the moment funds are issued. Not from graduation, not from employment, from day one. The interest rate is tied to RPI inflation, which runs higher than CPI, plus up to 3%, depending on income. Each year's borrowed amount accumulates interest independently. The first year accrues the longest. The final year accrues the least. By graduation, the total balance reflects layered compounding across all years. Repayments are income-based, 9% of earnings above a threshold. But if interest accumulates faster than repayments reduce principal, the balance can continue rising even while monthly payments are being made. This is not accidental, it is structural. The system does exactly what the formula dictates. Exponential mechanics do not negotiate. Section 4. The shared pattern: war, insurance, student debt. Different domains, same architecture. In each case, a complex surface reality hides a simpler underlying system. The system is governed by mathematics. Small advantages at the abstraction layer create massive downstream effects. Most participants operate at the surface level, unaware of the governing logic beneath. The codebreaker manipulates permutations. The actuary manipulates probability distributions. The loan contract manipulates exponential growth. Once the abstraction layer is understood, leverage increases dramatically. Once it is ignored, vulnerability follows. Section 5. The strategic lesson. There are two ways to engage with systems. 1. React to visible events. 2. Study the governing logic. The first feels urgent. The second feels quiet, but the second decides the first. A decrypted rotor configuration shifts a global war. A mortality table builds a centuries-old institution. An inflation-linked interest formula shapes a generation's financial trajectory. Surface events look chaotic because the abstraction layer is invisible. Yet the abstraction layer is stable, consistent, mathematical, and merciless. Section 6. The real exponential truth. The decisive forces in modern life are not emotional. They are structural: encryption logic, risk pooling, inflation indexing, compounding. These forces do not require intent to operate. They only require ignorance to dominate. When abstraction is mastered, leverage appears. When abstraction is misunderstood, consequences compound. The battlefield, the insurance pool, the loan statement, they are manifestations. The real action is upstream, and upstream is always exponential. Flint West signing off.